Assistant Professor of Korean Media and Cinema Studies at the University of Toronto. Her work explores contemporary South Korean genre cinemas, Korean television, K-pop's politicization on digital platforms, and histories of race and racialization in K-pop and its fandoms. She is co-editor of two books, Bangtan Remixed, A Critical BTS Reader, and Mediating Gender in Post-Authoritarian South Korea. She's also author of the forthcoming monograph, Genre Worlds, Global Forms and Millennial South Korean Cinema. Her public-facing writing appears in such venues as the Los Angeles Review of Books, and she's a frequent commentator on Asian media in outlets ranging from NPR to the CBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and the Washington Post. She once hosted a public conversation between Hallyu stars and BFFs Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I hope we have here, okay, yeah. One of the stars of the film, Ethan Hwang. After sustaining an injury playing competitive hockey, Ethan Hwang transitioned to his acting career. Ethan began by booking commercials in smaller roles, eventually taking the role of young Ben in the widely acclaimed Netflix hit, The Umbrella Academy. He went on to shoot the award-winning film, Riceboy Sleeps, and the highly anticipated feature film, Child. So welcome to our stage, Michelle Cho and Ethan Hwang.
Hi everyone. It's so nice to see like a full house for this beautiful film. So thanks everyone for sticking around, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. We're really lucky to have Ethan Hwang with us tonight. And yeah, I have a few questions prepared that I wanted to pose to Ethan to begin, but we'll definitely have some time for Q&A from the audience as well. It's especially great to have this screening here at Innis, and I know because the film premiered at TIFF and at the Busan Film Festival in 2022. So it's great to have this kind of Toronto audience again. So I wanted to start things off by just asking you to give us a little bit of like background on how you got involved in this film. You're kind of so this film is a semi-autobiographical film, right? Of
Right.
Anthony Shim, the director and editor and actor in the film, his kind of story. So you end up being the kind of stand-in for him. So yeah, what was that like? And so how did you get involved in the film, and what was it like to kind of be that stand-in? What kind of conversations did you have to get prepared for this role?
So I had worked with someone named Jonathan Kim on a short film, and he was actually close friends with Anthony. And so Anthony was looking for a Korean teenager who was able to speak both Korean and English, which was like, I guess, very narrowed down to like me. And so Jonathan was like, oh, hey, there's a guy I worked with. He's like, I think I was 16, 17 at the time. So he's 17, he can play the role, he can play, he can speak English and Korean. And so I auditioned for the role, and I sent in the tape to Anthony. I guess Anthony liked it. And so we had some, Zoom meetings beforehand, and we were just talking and all that. And I was so nervous, not for any reason, just the fact that when my dad read the script, he was so moved. And my dad's super, super picky with like the films he watches and the films he likes and stuff like that. He's super film buff. But him reading that and seeing like his eyes like light up, was so inspiring to me. And I was like, oh, this film just touches him because he moved to Canada and the U.S. at a very young age as well. So if anyone would relate to Tonghyun, would be my dad over me. And so just seeing him made me feel like I had some responsibility to, share his story and all his, people that have been through and so I feel like I was like so nervous, and I had all this like responsibility that I never thought I could ever take on before. And Anthony, he was just so honest in this one Zoom meeting. He was like, "I don't think you want to do this," and I was like, "No, I'm just so nervous. Like I can't fathom you guys shooting on real film. I have to like shave my head for this role. There's like just so many different things." And my mom was always like, you know, skeptical about me speaking Korean. She's like, "Oh, your Korean sucks, whatever." So I'm like, okay, how am I gonna do this, right? I ended up pulling it off anyway, and I really trusted Anthony's vision, and he was kind of the first director to kind of work with me in a sense that it opened up my career into more of like an artistic, performance-based act. Because I'd started with, you know, some more television, Netflix stuff, series, and they aren't very deep in the sense of perspective and personality, right? Very shallow. That's not to say it isn't shallow, but something like Riceboy would never be, you know, shown on that platform. So yeah, that's how I got into it,
That's great.
and those were my sort of, you know, I rehearsed with Anthony beforehand for multiple weeks, and I rehearsed with Yoon, who was great, and yeah, that's how it all came together.
That's great. So it sounds like, you know, conversations with not just Anthony, but also your dad or your parents, like kind of helped you to maybe understand some of these experiences of being a
Right.
Korean immigrant. I noticed this is 1990s BC. You have grown up in the GTA, is that correct?
I was born in Vancouver,
Oh, okay.
but I moved to London, England, with my family until I was about 4.
Mhm.
And then we moved. I grew up in Toronto ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any experiences that you kind of had to perform in the role of David Donghyun that kind of resonate with things that you've experienced?
I've experienced
as
in real
well?
life.
Yeah.
Probably like the fitting in part, like fitting in with friends and stuff. I grew up mostly in the GTA, so you know, very very diverse. Sorry, it's very diverse. It's a melting pot. So I would say the only way I could really relate would be before I got into acting. I played AA hockey for 12 years, and so I was like the only Asian kid on every hockey team I would ever join. And you know, back when I was younger, I wouldn't really necessarily understand what any of that meant. You know, why some kids chose to be friends with me, some kids didn't choose to be friends with me. Rarely ever thought, oh, I wonder if it's because I look like this. You know, looking back on it now, it definitely does kind of resonate. But I did try to fit in a lot of times, and I don't think I had to, which was the beauty of it. Sorry, side note, my dad's name is also David too, which is like hilarious. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm maybe a little bit closer to
Yeah.
Anthony Shim's age, and I had that kimbap moment actually
Yeah.
when I was in elementary school. I know that, you know, for some people that moment may seem kind of exaggerated, but it did happen, you know, and so it's kind of interesting now that Korean food is having its own kind of moment right now. So yeah, great. So I wanted to ask you about, you know, how you were. So this film is really like remarkable for so many reasons in terms of the camera work, the way that it kind of sets up these long shots and lets kind of things unfold. It's so beautiful in its construction, and it also manages to kind of make your story and So-young's story sort of like they're equally developing, especially in that like second and third act. So can you talk a little bit about maybe how you guys worked together as a kind of mother-son pair, and also as, you know, two different lenses on this experience? I mean, she's having a bit of a homecoming. You're kind of exploring this aspect of yourself, but also kind of coming of age in a certain way. So are there ways that, you know, you guys were negotiating with each other how to share that space? Because it really is this like pair thing that's happening?
So when we prepared for the role, Yoon had never acted before. Like, this is her first time acting ever. She has background in ballet, so her performance and physicality and the way she can perform that she's sick is she's amazing. But I remember when I met her, there's also kind of a language barrier because my first language is English. Her first language is Korean. But I remember it was only until we started to rehearse and start to feel the chemistry of Anthony gave us objectives. What does this character want? And what are you gonna do to get it? And what does the other character want? And what are they gonna do to get it? And you would find the conflict in that scene, right? And so understanding that really helped us sort of know where the peak was in the moments, where it would build, where to pick up the pace, and where, that's why it's also such a real moment. All these scenes are one shot. And so the beauty behind the one shot is that you're watching it from the perspective of the dead father. That is why it's moving through the house. You kind of feel like it's kind of hidden behind corners. Just the way the camera was moved around, it made you feel like you were actually there. But in terms of the scenes and the arguments and all that, it was all planned out before, and Yoon and I just practice. We had gone through so many different ways to handle that scene that we just found something we found something that eventually felt right for any moment, which was all thanks to Anthony as well with his amazing direction. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to film in Korea? Was it a new place for you? Did you, the scene that takes place in the bathhouse is so interesting because that kind of culturally specific experience of having a family member scrub your skin raw is, could have been, really off-putting perhaps, or just alienating for someone to experience for the first time. But the way that you portray it is so, it's very nuanced because you're like, what? But also, okay, there is something, I'm bonding with this person in this space, right? So yeah, do you have any reactions to Korea, filming in Korea and being introduced to those elements of culture?
I think the bathhouse was the best because when we filmed in Vancouver, it was so hot. It was during the forest fires. So all the heat would just get trapped and, it'd be hard to breathe. In Korea too, it was the hottest month of the year. So being in the bathhouse wasn't that bad. I would say filming in Korea was super, super, just so different. I'd gone to Korea multiple times to visit family and all that beforehand, but this was my first time working there, and this was during COVID. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, he got diagnosed with throat cancer before we started filming. So my mom had to fly to Korea, and she had to quarantine for 30 days in Korea with my younger brother before she could, say bye. I had gone on a work visa, so I was able to go and I went by around the time my mom's quarantine was going to finish. So I was able to not quarantine because I was on my work visa, and I was able to just go see him. And it was the 29th day. They wouldn't let my mom in, so I went in, said hi, I said bye, sorry, and he, just wasn't there, mentally. The next day was when my mom was supposed to go see my grandfather. That was my mom had waited 30 days. And it was literally that morning, we got a call, and apparently he had passed. Yeah, so all of that had happened, and I actually went to my grandfather's funeral and all that, and met up with my actual family. in Korea, all before the I had to film for Riceboy. So there were a lot of like parallels that happened there, and yeah, it was super awakening for me because I felt like I had grown as well. Like if Anthony always says in the Q&As, he always makes fun of me, but you can see my Korean getting better, like in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would say shaving my head. I never realized how bad sunburn is on the top of your head. It was just really bad. But yeah, that's about it. Korea was like just another sort of experience that I don't think I would ever. It would never feel the same.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. And I think that it really kind of comes through. It's like remarkable for me to kind of process the fact that you're kind of, I mean, you're really close in age to David in the film, right?
I think 3 years older.
3 years older, okay. So it's really remarkable that you have these kind of parallel experiences, and I think that all of that is really evident in the film. I had other questions prepared, but I don't want to take up all the time because I do really appreciate all of you being here, late in the evening, during the week before finals, or I don't know how much that applies to you all, but so we are really happy to open up for questions from the audience, if you have any that you'd like to pose, or just reactions as well. Yeah, I see some in the back. I think we have a mic that might be circulating, so.
I just wanted to ask, I didn't know that you were a hockey player before. Was there anything from your hockey experience that you used, like that helped you with your acting, and was there anything that you had to sort of let go of or do differently? I just wondered.
Honestly, they were like two opposing forces. I would say, there's a whole teamwork aspect of hockey that I could, take into filming and acting. But they're two different, sort of areas in my life that it was hard for me to connect. I actually filmed Umbrella Academy. So the reason why I quit hockey was because it was my first year in contact, and I got body checked from behind, and I broke my arm. So, hockey career gone. But I ended up booking Umbrella Academy in that same month. So I filmed the first season of Umbrella Academy with a broken arm that wasn't fully healed yet, and I had to take the cast off and everything. It was crazy. But I would say definitely the way of looking at things, definitely like my endurance of, being physical and stuff. I could be on set a lot longer and outside. All that would be great. But yeah, that's about it.
Can I follow up a tiny bit?
Yeah.
Because I'm really, really fascinated with the way that kind of guy culture, masculinity is portrayed and how you're trying to fit into that. And some of that coming from the hockey kind of context, or
I had been around
do you have
it.
any comments on that?
Yeah. I've been around. I've seen what it is and stuff, and I don't really care. But it's it does definitely get to the point where how bad can it get, and how much respect you have for yourself, and what's best for you, right? Also, when you're younger and you're like, when I was on a hockey team, it was kind of hard to be. It was easy to be close to people. It wasn't easy to be vulnerable with anyone, and I feel like it was such a shock to me when that transferred over to Riceboy. There's like people on set who are watching this performance of me being the most vulnerable I am, and I feel like finding a balance between both of how setting boundaries for yourself and choosing the right friends would be a good balance to find.
Great, thank you. Yes, there's a question right in the middle, blue shirt.
Besides getting a sunburn on your head, what does it mean for you when the scene where you had to shave your head as a character?
Right.
What does it mean for you as a person, as an actor?
So in that scene, when I shave my head, the blonde hair with the roots of my hair being my real color, it's sort of like symbolizing me trying to be someone I'm not, right? And it can show my insecurities of who I really am in the roots. And shaving my head is sort of him finding his true self, finding his new someone where he can try, really be himself, be the most vulnerable he is, and he's, meeting himself at a point where it's so, embarrassing, but it's also so, it's for him to grow, right? And I lost my train of thought. But that hair would be sort of the symbolizing of him losing the blonde hair is him trying to shave off all that insecurity that he had before. Yeah. And then for me, it was just like, I didn't like the blonde hair, so. Yeah. Any more questions?
Yep, in the back.
Asian cinema, specifically in the North American Anglo context, has recently been prominent. Like, I'm thinking about Everything Everywhere All at Once with its Oscars. You also have my favorite movie of the year, Didi. I don't know if anyone saw that, but that was incredible. So I was just wondering if you grew up with any Asian representation in media, and if so, or if not, how does that feel, especially having Riceboy Sleeps being one of those, I guess, case studies in the contemporary movie scene?
Yeah. So my dad's super, he grew up in the U.S. and Canada and back, in the 80s, 90s. And, for him, there was no representation, really. So that's why when he read the script for Riceboy, it was like he's never seen this before. It's insane. I would say, definitely Asian representation in North America has been, helping, but it's still, it's not. In the U.S., the reality is that, it's just not profitable for them, which I think is, horrible, a horrible thing to say. We were supposed to get, whether or not it's a Canadian film, we were supposed to get theatrical distribution in the U.S., which hasn't come to fruition, and that never happened. And Anthony might have said that it might be because it was sort of hard to distinguish from Minari, which is kind of
Totally different, guys. It's so different.
Yeah, so I can't say, I don't want to say, but someone had said, oh, we don't need another Minari. And it just never happened, which is like insane. And that person, okay, I can't say. But it was just to me, like, that's still happening, and it's still, like, it's kind of just insane that it's not even looked at, right? And I get roles now and auditions now with the intent of having, an Asian, for Asian representation and stuff, and it's still, sometimes it's just, it doesn't get the funding, it doesn't get the same, the writing goes in a different direction. So yeah, it's still, with the recent successes we've seen for Asian representation in cinema, it's been getting there, but it's still not, it's still not helping, really.
Yeah, there's probably a long way to go, but I would say one of the differences between like some of the Asian American productions, like whether Minari or Past Lives, is that there's a studio backing or producer from the Korean media industry, which is quite powerful. This is a Canadian production, right? And so that places some constraints on it, but allows it to also hold on to really distinctive, like, Korean Canadian identity, which I think is important.
Yeah, it kind of narrows it down in terms of, like, who can relate to it, right? Yeah.
Yes, question there.
Hi, I'm Susan. Congratulations, Ethan. That
Thank you.
was fantastic. Beautiful movie. I wanted to actually talk about the Asian representation because I've optioned a book written by a Korean Canadian author in Vancouver. It's a fantastic book called Team Park. And I am also applying for a fund that will provide $300,000 to help train, mentor, and set up internship for Asian, well, actually, people of color. And so this story is, or this TV series, sitcom, is about a Korean Canadian family.
Right.
And I'm casting all Koreans in the main roles, so authentically, because I'm really tired of having, for instance, Kim's Convenience, right? So Simu Liu, I mean, there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with him, but he's not Korean.
Right.
And what frustrates me is that Toronto is the biggest Korean community in Canada, I think third in North America.
Correct.
And I cannot believe they couldn't find a young, a 20-something Korean guy to play the son. I mean, that's ridiculous. So anyway, so I'm casting all the characters authentically, whether they have like 10% Korean, whatever, I don't care. And I am setting up this, it's a not-for-profit
Right.
to train aspiring actors, producers, directors, all that, so that we can finally have authentic representation.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
And it's about a second-generation Korean Canadian family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the main lead is an 11-year-old boy,
Mm-hmm.
and his parents do not have any accent.
Right. Yeah.
They speak English like I do. So all to say that it's like the Cosby family or the Cosby family and what is it? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think they were the first black sitcoms that portrayed black families as normal American families as opposed to ghetto, right?
Right.
So anyways, there is a movement and it's coming. Just wait.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you lead that. Yeah. Casting for sure is still stereotyped. I could say a lot with Kim's Convenience. I've worked with Paul and Grappa, and he's said the same. It's still he's been a Canadian actor for so long, like I think over 40 years, and he said it's still not it's still the same. So.
And you know that the other person who gained the most is a Filipino actor who got a spin-off from Kim's Convenience.
Right.
So I'm just really frustrated. And then there was what's that movie?
I'm so
called?
sorry, but I think we have
Sorry.
other people who are going to ask questions. But thank you
Okay,
so much
okay.
for letting us know about
Yeah.
that. Yes, the woman in the white. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's better.
Hello. Thank you so much for showing such a great movie.
Thank you.
And I agree with her because one of the beauty of this movie is to represent Korean culture very well. Every detail shows exactly what Korean culture is, the way to scold children, the way to eat food, etc. So thank you so much for acting that well.
Thank you.
Especially when the So-young shouted at from the top of the mountain, I felt like it's exactly what I want to do as an immigrant woman. So I couldn't but help crying with her too much. Anyway, my question is, the title is Riceboy Sleeps. I got why he put Riceboy in the title, but I don't get why he sleeps. Do you have any idea about the title?
So.
Thank you.
When the real story would be Anthony wrote this film, and when he wrote this film, he listened to an album, an instrumental composition of an album called Riceboy Sleeps, it was called Riceboy Sleep. So if you search up Riceboy Sleep on YouTube, you'll see they have live concerts and stuff, and there's it's not a band, it's an orchestra and stuff. So he just put that in as temporary, and he sort of kept like looking at the title, and he was like, it kind of looks like that stereotype is going to bed, like it's going away from his life, like it's leaving sort of. It kind of felt like it matched with the story, and so he just didn't bother changing it, and I guess it worked out. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
Yes.
If you could work with anyone in the film industry, whether it be an actor or a film director, who would it be and why?
I think if I ended up working with Bong Joon-ho, my mom would like finally be like, okay. I think that's my peak. I mean, like I really love Christian Bale's work, Steven Yeun. Oh man, this putting me on the spot. I have so many. There's so many, but yeah, like Bong Joon-ho would be like, for like, my parents would be so proud, like overly proud of anything, like nothing can beat that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Any other questions? I know we're kind of nearing an end, but yeah, did you want to ask?
Hi, so what I wanted to ask was, what was sort of like the key moment in your life that made you think acting is something that I want to do? Because your transition from being like in your athletic career to your acting career was really rapid. And I was just curious also about like sort of like your dreams and your future aspirations following now.
Okay. Yeah, what really changed my perspective on acting and like my what I wanted to do with the rest of my life was from this movie. Seeing like all the people that I can actually connect to and all the people that I can relate to and just the emotions that a movie can bring out from people and how it can connect all these different communities. That was like there's nothing else that feels like that. And it's not, it's not money, it's not anything else. It's seeing someone else, appreciate your work and be able to have such love for something and such deep connection to something that you made, or that's something you were a part of. That's like, for me, I feel like that would be like for my purpose in life. I found that I never really loved talking. I never really loved school, but acting is something that I really love doing, regardless of where I am, what I'm doing, what project I'm doing. I love it. I would say, for my future aspirations, I hope acting does well. I am in school. I'm studying business management. So, finish undergrad. Backup would be, I don't know, maybe law school or something, or I don't know. That's something boring. But yeah, I mean, I would love to just continue acting. I really want to get behind the camera. I produced my first short film as well last year, which we screened at TIFF. So yeah, all that stuff, just being in the film industry is something that I would love to do. Yeah.
Great. Are there any projects you want to promote or things you're working on before we close?
So I transitioned to the U.S. and there's a film called Isle Child, written and directed by Thomas Percy Kim, and it's about a Korean adoptee, and it's a true story about a Korean adopted kid who grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and it's a familiar sort of similar, not the same story, but it sort of outlines the same sort of identity issues and cultural issues. We filmed that last year, ran out of money in post-prod, which is like very common, and then hopefully should come out next year, hopefully at TIFF. But yeah, that's about it.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to that, and so thank you so much for sharing with us so generously and for this wonderful film.